Do you ever just stop and think, how did I get here? It's good to do once in a while, and today I'm doing it with watches. Welcome to my collection video. Welcome back to the channel for Right Time Watches here in Denver, Colorado. Today I'm doing something a little bit different. We're going to be taking a look at my personal watch collection. This is going to be a fun journey for me, as it's always so much fun to reflect on exactly what you have and count your blessings, so to speak. These watches tell a story about me, and we'll start in the very beginning. The first watch we're going to look at in my collection is this one right here, the Nixon Banks. This watch means a lot to me. This was a gift from my now wife when we were just dating and about to get engaged. I had told her about the watches that I had when I was in college before we started to get serious. My sweet wife knew that I loved wristwatches, but she didn't know what to do with that. So as we were getting closer and closer to being engaged, she kept prying and asking what kind of watch I was looking for next. I had one watch at the time and I really loved it. And it all started with Nixon. That one was a Nixon Quattro, a really fun square watch. I really liked square watches at the time, and I had told her about this particular model, the Banks. She knew it was something that I was interested in, and I had showed her that I found one on eBay for a really good price. Later on, she surprised me with that exact model, which I loved. It's got this white dial with the brown subdials. It's a really nice watch, and while my tastes and things have changed a little bit as time has gone on, it's really fun to keep this one as a memento, a moment in time, to what my life was like back then, and fun to reflect and think about how much I've grown and how much my life has changed since then. This is an awesome watch, and I'll keep it forever. Next one up, in no particular order, is this Seiko 5. When this first came out, I was so intrigued by this watch. I've always loved the Tudor Black Bay, and at the time it was something that was really far out of my price range. But when I first saw this beautiful Dresskx, I thought it would be a fantastic alternative. At 40mm it's a little bit small for my 8-inch wrist, but I just had to have that look. And when I first started working with Right Time, that's when I had the opportunity to get one in hand and to experience it myself. I love this watch. I think it's beautiful, and it's a really great one to throw on a day-to-day basis. Next up, as a bit of change of pace, I'll go with my most recent acquisition, which is this one right here. The brand new all-metal Casioak GM2100 with the green dial and strap. I think this watch is absolutely beautiful. It's an incredible value for the money when you get something with such an awesome style. This is an excellent weekend watch. It's one that I can wear and not worry about beating it around if I'm doing yard work or helping with the kids or playing sports or whatever it is that we're doing on the weekend. I think this watch is really attractive. The steel case is really well done, and I absolutely love this kind of smoke gray finish on it. I think the gray with the green is a perfect balance, although there's a ton of models from this lineup that I think would be a great fit for many. I love this watch because it looks different from everything else in my collection. I have a lot of watches, some of them square, some of them round, but to get this octagon shape is a total change of pace, and I absolutely love it. The next one I'll share sticks with that G-Shock theme. This one is the Casio G-Lide. I really enjoy this watch. I think it's good looking and it's super functional. I love the teal color on this, and I love the steel bezel. I've worn this one in the ocean, I've worn this one in the mountains. It really stands up to everything that I put it up against. This is a fantastic watch. Next up is one of my favorite watches from a design perspective, and one of the most universally wearable, being that I can wear it in the most situations. This is my Maurice Lacroix Aikon 42mm with a blue dial. This watch is gorgeous. I think the design is really fantastic. Obviously it's taking some cues from watches like the Royal Oak with this blue pattern dial and with the integrated lugs and bracelet. That being said, I believe this one stands on its own. It's got a wonderful design. It comes in at a crazy good price point of just $2,000 US. And this one I put on the rubber strap, but I have the bracelet also, and changing between the two is super easy. Probably, in my opinion, the best quick change strap on the market. You can get this watch on leather or on a bracelet, or I took a liberty and decided to try out this rubber strap from the Venturer lineup, and it fits like a dream. Next up, we'll return to sentimentality a little bit with this beautiful Shinola Runwell with a blue dial and a gray case. I was having a conversation with my dad, and as it tends to do, it steered towards watches. He doesn't really care for watches and doesn't wear one himself, but he told me a story about a time when he was visiting his friends in Detroit after living nearby for many years, and he had heard about this company called Shinola. His friend had one of the watches on his wrist with the green dial, and for whatever reason it sort of stuck out in his mind, even though he's not a watch wearer himself. So he and I would go back and forth talking about these Shinola watches, and I decided to do a little bit more research myself. We had talked back and forth, and I had looked and looked to try and maybe find one that I could get for him as a gift. Little did I know, he was doing the same thing. So he bought one for himself and one for me. It was a really nice gesture from a guy who doesn't really care about watches himself, but it meant a lot to me, and this is another one that will never leave my collection. Next up is a watch that I featured here on the channel a little while back, and it's probably my favorite watch from Oris. The Oris Big Crown Propilot X with the 10-day power reserve and the skeleton dial. This watch is truly something special. It's built in all titanium, so it has a really light feel on the wrist, even though it's a little bit larger at 44mm, which is again perfect for me with an 8-inch wrist. This watch really speaks to me for so many reasons, but truthfully, it's the design. This watch looks super cool. It's one of my favorite watches to wear because it's super comfortable and it's got an extremely cool look to it. Of all the family members that I have that couldn't possibly care less about watches, this is the one that I can show them and they say, "Oh, I think I kinda get it." I think between the skeleton dial and understanding something as cool as a 10-day power reserve from a manual wind watch, even a casual enthusiast or someone who doesn't care about watches at all really understands that this is something special. I love this watch. This is probably one that I grab for and wear more often than anything else in my watch box for so many different reasons that I've already talked about. But this is definitely one that's worth taking a look at if you're considering looking for a cool skeleton for yourself. Next up is a watch from a brand that everybody knows and loves and is having an absolutely banner year. This is the Seiko 62 Mas 140th Anniversary Limited Edition. From the second I saw this colorway on this watch, I knew I had to have it. And I put it off and I put it off because it's a little bit small at 40mm. But eventually I just gave in because it was so good looking and so well built for the price. I love this watch. I think it's absolutely gorgeous, and it's something that would be a great fit for many different collections because it's so universally wearable. Even though it's a bit smaller than I would typically wear, I still think it looks good, and it's definitely worth it because of this beautiful colorway. The silverish white dial paired with that blue bezel, it's a look that you don't find in very many other watches, so I'm super happy that I was able to add this to my collection. It is a limited edition and it's going fast, so if you'd like one, feel free to reach out. Next up is a watch from Rado that you may have never seen before, and it was something that caught my eye the very first time I stepped into Right Time. This watch is the Rado HyperChrome 1616 in ceramic. This watch is really special to my collection for several different reasons. Number one, it's made in ceramic, which is a material I had never experienced in watches before. I think it looks fantastic, and I love that it's got a unique colorway, being a brown case. I think the differentiation between the matte surfaces as well as the polished bezel on this watch make it so gorgeous. It's just unlike anything else that I have, or anything else that I see anyone else wear. I really like having something unique, as easy as it is to wear something that's really popular and many others have. This one is absolutely different and something that you rarely ever see. This watch has the ETA Powermatic movement in it, so it's got an 80-hour power reserve. It's really well built, and it's got this fantastic strap with an awesome deployant with a cool extension on the inside. I think Rado is a really underrated and undercelebrated brand, though they're starting to gain some traction here stateside. And last, but certainly not least, maybe my favorite watch of the bunch, and the one I'm wearing more than anything else right now. It's my Grand Seiko SBGE 201 Spring Drive Divers GMT. Of all the watches in the Grand Seiko catalog, this is one that caught my eye from the very beginning. Naturally, me with an 8-inch wrist, I gravitate towards a little bit larger watches. And as you well know, many in Grand Seiko's lineup are super wearable and hover right around the 40mm mark. But for me, the diamond in the rough is this 44mm Divers GMT. The more I looked into Grand Seiko, the more I realized I really wanted a spring drive. They've got some fantastic quartz models, some really amazing automatics, but I knew that having a spring drive is something that I wanted to add to my collection. So knowing that this was available in 44mm really made this an easy choice for me. I think this is my favorite watch. It's the most comfortable on the wrist outside of that Oris, and I think that this would be a great addition for many collections, whether you've got a big wrist or not. If you like this watch, but you're a little bit scared off by the 44mm size, don't be. Grand Seiko has an amazing sport collection with some beautiful ceramic bezels. This one is a sapphire. So the look isn't exactly the same, but you can get a very similar watch in a much more manageable size and universal for much smaller wrists. So that's it, you guys. That's where my collection sits right now. It's 10 wonderful watches, some with amazing stories and some just because I like them. I really appreciate you tuning in to take a look at my collection with me today, and it will be super exciting to see how it evolves over time. Even from now to a year ago, my watch collection and my taste has changed so much, and it's been incredibly fun to pick up new watches and cycle through, let some old ones out the door, and let them be enjoyed by others. As always, thank you so much for stopping by, and we'll see you next time at Right Time.